Naam, karibu tena mtazamaji wangu wa GBS TV katika ukurasa wa pili ambapo tutakuwa tunazungumzia swala nzima kuhusu usafi wa hewa. Na sijui kama mtazamaji wangu wa GBS TV umeweka hivi chini ukajiuliza kuna muhimu wa kuzingatia usafi wa hewa. Hili jambo la kwanza. Jambo la pili, sijui kama umeweka hivi chini ukajiuliza, je, hewa ni safi? Mtazamaji wangu wa GBS TV, sijui kama umeweka hivi ukajiuliza, hewa inaweza chafuka na kuna repercussions za kupumua hewa ambayo ni chafu, na kuna umuhimu wote kupumua hewa ambayo ni safi. Ndio maana siku ya leo tuko na mgeni ambaye anafahamika kama Daktari George Mwaniki ambaye yuko nasi. Ningetaka nimweke hewani aweze kukusalimu ili tuweze kuingia katika mazungumzo yetu ukurasa wetu wa pili. Karibu ndugu yangu.
Asante Bwana Kibe, na nimefurahi kwa hii nafasi ya kuongea kuhusu hewa safi yenye tunapumua. Kwa hivyo hiyo ni nafasi, nashukuru sana. Yeah.
Thank you. Ningetaka sasa uweze kusalimu wa Kenya ambao wanatutazama kutoka sehemu tofauti mahali popote walipo. Karibu wasalimie na walete ndani ya mazungumzo haya.
Habari ndugu zanguni wa Kenya, karibuni kwa mazungumzo ya hewa safi katika nchi yetu. Ningependa kwanza kusema wakati Mungu alikuwa anatuumba, aliweka wazazi wetu Adam na Eve kwa shamba la Eden. Hilo shamba maybe kulikuwa na possibility maji yanaweza kuwa machafu, chakula inaweza kuwa chafu. Kwa hivyo venye Mungu alituumba, kwa tumbo zetu aliweka acids na vitu zingine ambazo ukikula kitu chafu at least tumbo inajaribu kutengeneza ama kutoa huyo uchafu. Lakini kwa hewa, nadhani ile shamba la Eden alikuwa na hewa safi chafu. Kwa hivyo ukiangalia venye ukivuta hewa inaendanga directly into the lungs kisha inaingia kwa damu bila kusimama mahali popote. Na kwa hivyo hewa ikiwa chafu, hiyo uchafu inaingia directly kwa bloodstream. Na kwa hiyo system yote ni tule tunywele tu tunakuwa kwa mapua tuje tunatoa particles kubwa, lakini particles ndogo zinaingia directly kwa damu. So hiyo ni mambo tutaongea leo. Katika nchi yetu ya Kenya estimate ni kuwa per year around 29,000 people wanakufa prematurely kwa kuvuta hewa chafu.
29,000.
29,000.
Hiyo ni idadi ya juu sana.
Yeah. Na Nairobi namba ni kama 8,000. Yeah.
80,000. Yeah. Okay, so ningetaka tuweze kuangalia ni nini wakati mwingine huwa inachangia kuwa na hewa ambayo si nzuri.
Kitu very interesting cha hewa ni tukiwa hapa naye Bwana Kibe tukipumua hewa. Hiyo hewa kama kuna mnyama yote mwenye ako hapa anaipumua. Kama kuna gari imepita hapa imetumia hiyo hewa kisha ikaitoa. Kama kuna mtu anapika mahali na kuni, hiyo moto bado inatumia hewa. Kama kuna mtu anachoma takataka bado inatumia hiyo hewa. Kwa hivyo hewa ni kitu ambacho kila kitu duniani kama inatumia. Mahali popote unaona moto ama unaona heat, lazima hewa inatumika pale. Na hewa ikishatumika, ikishakuwa emitted, kama moto ikichoma ikishatoa hiyo moshi inaingia kwa hewa tena sisi tunavuta. Kwa hivyo ni mambo mengi ambayo yanachangia uchafuzi wa hewa. Lakini sana sana ukiwa kwa towns, magari ndio number one. Na zinatoa vitu tunaita particulate matter. Hizo particulate matter ni particles tudogo kama mara 10 ndogo kushinda nywele yako. Hako kikapumua kanaenda directly kwa lungs, kanaingia kwa bloodstream. Na most of the time kanakuanga na chemicals fulani. So hizo chemicals ikishaingia kwa damu, then unaanza kuona magonjwa. Ugonjwa ile ya muhimu zaidi ni vitu kama cancer. Lung cancer, hizo zinatoka kwa kuvuta hewa chafu. Kuna brain damage. In fact, mwaka wa 1980s wakati walianza kufanya utafiti zaidi wa hewa, waligundua siku hiyo tulikuwa tunaweka lead kwa petroli. Ati ili gari ukiasha inaguruma haraka. Waliona zile nchi ambazo lead inatumika sana kwa petroli, vijana wakikuwa wanakuwa na tendency ya kuwa criminals. So hewa chafu bado inachangia kwa ile brain damage, brain development, lung cancer na magonjwa mengine mengi. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Ningetaka tuweze kuangalia now the quality ya hewa safi. Ni kama nini?
Hewa ikiwa safi saa hizi, unless ukienda Mau Forest katikati, pengine hapo ndio utapata hewa ambayo iko safi zaidi. Lakini kwa nchi yote ya Kenya ni mahali chache sana hewa iko venye inastahili kuwa, tunaitanga pristine air. Ni very difficult. Duniani kote 98% ya watu duniani wanaishi mahali kuna hewa chafu. Kwa hivyo ni watu wachache sana wanaishi mahali hewa ni safi. Na tukisema hewa safi, tunasemanga sana sana kwa hizo particulate matter ikiwa 5 microgram per meter cubed. Hiyo ni namba fulani ambayo ni very little. Hiyo ndio sahihi World Health Organization wanasema sasa ukiwa hapo hewa ni safi. Lakini sasa kwa hiyo unasikia World Health Organization na recommend 5. Nairobi namba hiyo average inakuanga 25. Kwa hivyo tuko 5 times higher. Na kuna maeneo kadhaa Nairobi na towns zingine Kenya ambazo inaenda mpaka unaona inapika 70, 80 to 100. So tuko mahali pabaya sana kwa mambo ya hewa. Yeah.
Tuko mahali pabaya. Ningetaka maybe tuweze hatuwezi kosa ama hatuwezi kuzungumzia hewa safi, tuweze kuzungumzia kuhusu swala ambalo limekuwa likizungumziwa sana, likitajwa sana. Najua kwa kulihusu una ufahamu kwa kiasi kikubwa kuhusu the climate change. Everybody, Kenya, Africa, Europe, America, everywhere, Asia, we are talking about the climate change. Mwananchi anataka kuelewa hii climate change tunasikia na tunasikia kwamba serikali zote zinaelekea kuwekeza kuhakikisha kwamba zimeweza kukabiliana na climate change. Tunazungumzia kuhusu nini?
Climate change inalingana sana na uchafuzi wa hewa. Kwa sababu venye Mungu alitengeneza dunia, hewa ilikuwa na kiasi fulani ya nitrogen, kiasi fulani ya oxygen, hizo gases zote. Lakini sasa sisi venye kama the human race, venye tumeanza kufanya development, industrialization, tumerelease a lot of additional gases. Sana sana zinaitwa greenhouse gases, ambayo number 1 ni carbon dioxide na methane. Hizo ndizo kubwa zaidi. Venye tumezirelease kwa hewa, hizo gases zikienda kwa hewa zina trap. Ile heat ikitoka kwa jua, ikikonga dunia ikianza kurudi nje, hizo gases zina trap. Kwa hivyo dunia inaendelea kuwarm. Napenda sana nikiongea hii mambo ya climate change. Watu wanafikiria ni jambo ambazo lilianza juzi. The first scientific paper ya climate change iliandikwa 1890. 1890. Siku hiyo ndio wataalamu waliweza kuseparate hewa into the constituent gases. Kisha wakaanza kuangalia characteristics ya each of the gases. Wakati walifika kwa carbon dioxide, wakaona one of characteristic yake ni kuabsorb radiation kutoka kwa jua, na inaiabsorb kisha inairelease sasa ikiwa heat. Sasa hiyo ndio industrialization huko ng'ambo ilikuwa imeshika makali. So huyo mwanasayansi alisema basi kama hii industrialization yetu inatoa hii gas, na hii gas tumeona inaongeza temperature kwa dunia, kuna possibility miaka ijayo tutakuwa na very serious global warming. So global warming is happening and a very very fast rate. In fact mimi ukiniuliza sasa hii ukiangalia challenges zenye humanity wana face, kama aliyetangulia mimi alikuwa anaongea mambo economic development in Kenya na vitu kama hizo, lakini nikiangalia vizuri the biggest threat ya human race is actually climate change. Juu kuna vitu kwa climate change na mambo mingi yanaongelelewa kusema climate change inaweza leta mafuriko, inaweza leta droughts. Hizo ni vitu long term na ni vitu ambazo zinaokaa kwa isolated areas, lakini kuna risk zingine ambazo hatuzioni kwa sasa, zile zinaitangwa abrupt changes. Kuna abrupt changes zenye zinaweza happen kisha usitukie maeneo fulani duniani yako either chini ya ziwa ama nyingine yamefreeze ama nyingine hayanyeshi kabisa. So those kind of challenges ndizo naona zikiwa very risky. Kuna glacier moja kule Antarctica inaitwa the Doomsday Glacier. I think 3 months ago ilianza kuonekana imepasuka na imeanza kuyeyuka. Hiyo glacier yenyewe tu ikiingia kwa ziwa then tutaona around 6 meters rise in sea levels, which ukiangalia town yetu ya Mombasa, most of it ni very few areas zenye ziko above 6 meters. So in case such a thing happens, then we are going to see much bigger losses.
Much bigger. Ningetaka tuweze kuzungumzia kuhusu tukisalia kwa climate change. Naambiwa nikuulize, na asante sana my good friend Njugu, watu wengi kutana niambia nikusalimie sana. Leta swala la green revolution, ama hiki kilimo siku hizi watu nasema tunalima kilimo cha kimahabara. Anauliza watu wanasema kwamba kwa njia moja ama nyingine hicho kilimo kina changia magonjwa fulani. Anauliza kama kuna uingiliano kati ya huu kulima wa kimahabara ama huu wa digital na climate change, now as you link with hewa safi.
Swali nzuri sana hilo. Kwa sisi watu wa environment hatutakai kuangalia kitu moja in isolation. Ukiangalia maji chafu pengine inatoka kwa town imeshindwa kumanage solid waste. Kwa hivyo lazima uangalie kila kitu pamoja.
Yes.
Tukiingilia swala la ukulima, in Kenya and in Africa, tulikosa ile kitu iko inaitwa the agriculture revolution. Yenye ukiangalia nchi kama Asia, Latin America waliweza kuongeza mazao yao by up to 60%. Lakini sisi bado mazao yetu hatuweki fertilizer ya kutosha, lakini venye tunalima bado mazao yetu yanaendelea kudrop. Nikiwa mtoto in the 1980s, 1 acre of shamba, an average, I come from Nakuru County, unge harvest around 40 bags of maize.
Yes.
Hiyo namba imekuja ikireduce. Sasa hii imefika around 8 bags per acre. Wakati itafika around 4 bags, then it becomes uneconomical to actually do farming. Na tunaelekea hapo very quickly. Na ndio maana we need to start thinking about how do we improve our agricultural practices. Kitu ya kwanza, ukienda kama Murang'a, into Murang'a juzi, it is actually a devastated landscape in terms of agriculture. Hiyo ni land ambayo imekuwa farmed for 400-500 years continuously non-stop, mpaka imefika mahali is not productive anymore. Ukienda the new areas zenye tumedevelop in the last 30 years, mazao ilikuwa mengi lakini sasa yana drop very quickly. Kwa hivyo lazima sasa tuanze kufikiria how do we manage our soil sustainably. There is a reason God worked for 6 days and then rested on the 7th day. And I think also shamba, if you look at the planet also as a living being, it also needs some level of rest. In fact, ukiangalia historia wa Israeli zamani walikuwa nalipa 6 years, kisha mwaka ya 7 walimi, wanaacha shamba ipumzike. Wanaanza tena every 7 years, mwaka moja kupumzika. Sisi tumelima mashamba yetu for 100 of years hajaipumzika. So lazima sasa tuanze kufikiria venye tunalima na venye tunatunza mashamba yetu. Kisha kuna hii issue also ya monocropping. Like where I come from, wananchi wamelima mahindi na maharagwe for the last 40 years. I think it's time now to anze ku mix different crops. Tuanze kufikiria kiangazi ikija vitu kama cassava, sweet potatoes. We need to think about integrating those into our food systems and also into our agricultural systems. I was actually surprised. I was in Uganda like a month ago. Hawa watu wapendi ugali sana. The Kenya we are obsessed with ugali. They eat a variety of foods. Yeah.
Naona wana complain unge kipanda. Sababu hiyo ndio
the main food. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Kuna swala la Kenya is joining the rest of the world in climate change by planting 15 billion trees. Will this be achieved? But as we link with hewa safi, is this the right approach even to quality air?
Trees do improve the quality of air. Planting of trees improves in terms of absorb hizo greenhouse gases, kuzitoa kwa lakini bado miti ziko na feedback loop ingine ambayo sana huwa to discuss. For example, ukienda sahi, let's say Mandera County is dry, is very reflect a lot of heat. Upande miti, ukiangalia reflectivity ya Mandera County na ya Mau Forest, No forest is basically a dark green color. Ukiangalia the desert is very reflective. So really ni kubalance. Hii ni swala science linaenda into details. We need to think about how do we balance the two. Kupanda miti is very important because also inazuia soil erosion, ina clean air na vitu kama hizo. Na mimi personally I like planting trees. I'm a big forest farmer myself. But we need to look at which species are we planting. Tunapanda miti ambayo ni yetu hapa ama tunatoa ngambo tunakuja kupanda hapa. We need to be very careful which type of trees we plant and where. For example, in cities like Nairobi, there are certain trees unaweza panda zifanye air pollution ikuwe worse. Because ukikata kama ile blue gum ukinusia inanukia vizuri sana So hiyo kunukia vizuri is some chemicals miti huwa zinatoa. Hizo chemicals zikiwa kwa msitu ni sawa, lakini ukizitoa kwa town na kuna emissions zingine za magari za industries zikikutana kwa hewa zinafanya chemistry zinaweza fanya hewa iwe worse than it is. So selecting trees for cities ni jambo ambalo we need to be very careful. Lakini for forest I think we should encourage indigenous trees.
Maybe on that, maybe and for the wale ambao wanatutazama, they would wish to understand based maybe from your experience katika field yako. Even if you may say that you want to plant 15 billion trees, do you have the space?
Yes, I think we have space for 15 billion trees. 15 billion trees is actually not that many. Comparing with our size of country. I think we are around 540 square kilometers. So 15 billion trees is possible. But also how do we integrate these trees in our farming systems? Because Kenya, ukiangalia the gazetted forest, hatuwezi panda 15 billion trees in the gazetted forest. Itabidi zingine zipandwe kwa the farmers and the farms. So how we plant those and how we select them would be very, very important.
Nambani kusalimia na Nicholas Mayo na niambia nikuulize kuhusu swala la kama ulivyotupatia statistic. I think hili swali limeguza watu ya kwamba kila mwaka tunapoteza watu 28 billion. So wanauliza as an organization, what advocacy are you taking?
Yeah, asante Nico, that's a very good question. Dunia nzima watu ambao wanakufa per year. Hiyo number I think I checked sometimes back, ilikuwa around 150 million people.
150 million.
Yeah. Every 8 people wenye wanakufa kila mwaka, mtu wa 8 anakufanga juu ya air pollution issues. So globally we are losing around 7.1 million people per year because of air pollution. And what we are trying to do in terms of environment na vitu za hewa, I think air pollution is one of the most neglected sectors in Kenya. Ukiangalia the things you need to live Kibe: food, water and shelter. Tukiangalia food, tuangalie tu nchi yetu Kenya. Kuna Ministry of Agriculture inaangalia mambo ya food. Tukiangalia water, kuna Ministry of Water inaangalia mambo ya maji. Tukiangalia hewa, kuna Ministry of Environment, lakini ukiangalia Ministry of Environment wana focus na forestry, wana focus na climate change. Really, issue ya hewa is the most neglected and urgent issue in Africa. Na si Kenya peke yake, Afrika yote kwa air pollution we are not taking the right steps. Na sisi kama organization, I work for the World Resources Institute, tunajaribu kuongea na serikali, build enough evidence, tunafanya a lot of research, tuna collect data kuona Nairobi in terms of air pollution tuko wapi. Na what can we do kuisafisha ama kuwa to the next level. So we are really trying to build those evidence na tunapeleka kwa serikali ambao wanatusikiza. I would say also in Kenya, one of the biggest advantage ni kuwa air pollution is one of those devolved functions. Ni kazi ya county. So kuna project moja tunafanya Nairobi ambayo wafadhili ni the US government, USAID, ambayo tunaita Clean Air Catalyst. Tulikuwa tunaangalia mambo ya hewa in 3 ways. Mambo ya kwanza ni understand kabisa, kuelewa how is our air in Nairobi, how dirty is it and what are the contributing factors. Hiyo ingine ni kuangalia what kind of solutions, the solutions gani ambazo Juu ukileta solutions za kudeal na hewa bado unaweza fanya biashara vibaya. So tunaangalia ni solutions gani ambazo zitafanya kazi. Tukishaamua hizo solutions, then tunaangalia ni watu gani that needs to be on the table as we discuss this. So we are really trying it, and I have to say Governor Sakaja na serikali ya Nairobi County, they are giving us a lot of support. They are very serious about it.
Okay, thank you. Ningetaka nikurudishe hili sila mwananchi ni langu, sababu ulivyosema ya kwamba katika swala la environment, mazingira, kuna area moja tuna push na tunasahau na ile nyingine. And I tend to believe ya kwamba the area that the government is pushing is the area that in advocate for resources, maybe for the watalii, but we are not minding now the other area. Maybe on the left area, what are you doing?
Very good question. The problem with air pollution ni kwa uwezi iona. Sahi ukitoka hapa nje unafikiria hewa iko safi. Maji yakichafuka unaiona mara moja. Chakula kikichafuka hata taste yenyewe ina change. Lakini hewa unless kupite gari inatoa moshi ndio utastukia for 2 minutes kuna moshi mwingi kisha iishe. But in the real sense, even when the air looks very clean and you can see very far, sometimes it is very, very dirty and very harmful for your health. In fact, study yenye tumefanya Nairobi, vitu kama lung cancer, 30% of lung cancer zinaletwa na air pollution. Kuna vitu kama diabetes, kuna magonjwa mengi hapo, pneumonia. Unaangalia air pollution ina contribute between 20 to 30%. In fact, we were looking at budget ya health ya Nairobi City County. Tukaona 30% hiyo health budget inaenda kuaddress challenges zenye zinaletwa na air pollution. Lakini Ministry ya Health at county level na Ministry ya Environment hawako wametengeneza hiyo link. So kuna pesa mingi sana nchi inapoteza kuaddress magonjwa. Nimesikia mwenye alikuja before me akiongea mambo ya NHIF. Lakini what are the root causes? One of the root causes ni air pollution. And we need to find ways of addressing it.
Okay, thank you. Kuna swali nilishika vizuri. I think I'm a good student. Kuna mahali ulisema ya kwamba as an organization, if you say that you want to go perfectly trained to practice what may end maybe the bad mama hewa chafu, unaweza kufinya wafanye biashara. And I want to look at this maybe industrialization. Most of industries in Nairobi County and Machakos counties. How to manage maybe as an organization to make sure that, yes, even if you may go, we may need the space, we may need to tell maybe you have to to excuse us from this place.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think wakati tunafanya hii mambo ya hewa, kusafisha hewa, kama uko na industry ambayo uko na generator yenyewe ina emit a lot of dirty air. The first thing that we don't recommend tikuja kuambiwa kesho toa hii generator uweke steamer ama uweke solar. Lazima na this is what we are advising the county. Lazima tukae chini tufanye hesabu kama wataalamu. Kama wewe mwanabiashara unatuambia generator yako unatumia this, tuangalie if you move to renewable, utaweza kusave maybe 100,000 per month kwa kutumia tu renewable energy, umesave hiyo. Kisha tunakufanyia hesabu hii saving after 5 years utakuwa umesave enough ya kureplace your generator. If the answer is yes, then you hata wewe mwenyewe kama mwanabiashara utaona yenyewe ina make sense ni invest sahi, kama in 5 years nitakuwa nimerecover the cost of investment. Tukiona imepitisha 5 years, tuna recommend sasa ufanye tu retrofit, uweke maybe particle filters kwa exhaust, vitu kama hizo, ili tukupe nafasi hata wewe ujijenge. I think the issue of regulations na biashara kuonekana as if they are competing challenges it's very dangerous. But I have to say, to company ambazo tumeongea nazo and we have explained this, some of them wanatuambia you guys are not moving fast enough. Wanatuambia restrictions zenu are not strong enough because they understand also it's for their own benefit. Lakini tunafanyanga those calculations. If you are able to recover the cost of investment in 5 years, kutoka kwa zile savings, then we make a strong recommendation that you should make that move. As a businessman, also you see the need to do that. If the cost recovery period is more than 5 years, we start looking at other options that can give you space.
Kabla tuchukue break fupi, early on, sikumbuki kama ilikuwa through the Act of Parliament, kulikuwa na pendekezo la kutoa baadhi ya viwanda katika county ya Nairobi maybe and being expelled to other counties. Can that hold water?
This is my personal opinion. I think government should not interfere with businesses. If mimi mwanabiashara naona Nairobi serves me better, kuna high labor, transport cost is not as bad, I think government should not dictate where I invest. But they can give me incentive to go to one of the EPZ zones. So I think that is more of a business level decision. I don't think it needs to be registered.
Tukichukua break fupi, tukilajia ningetaka uje ujibu swali kwa hapa hivi linaulizwa na Sofia wake mnasema some of Lake Naivasha reservations in Nairobi it was set, ilikuwa imeachwa, kulikuwa na mahali kulikuwa kumeachwa kama Lake Naivasha reservation in Nairobi, that is the Dagoretti South constituency. People built flats and swamp, and this is just one of many cases. What will be the repercussion in the near future? Kuna mahali kulikuwa reservations na tunajua hapa kuna kamsitu, ni kweli kuna greens, kuna hata ukiangalia hata wakati wa kiangazi panakaa tu pana unyevunyevu, kuna matawi yalikuwa yana grow pale, and then after maybe ile mambo kukata miti, Lake Naivasha ikapoteza reservations zake. So what next? Maflati zimejengwa pale.
I think if you look at the failures we have in governance, they are tremendous in this country. Now, one of the biggest failures is actually how we plan our city and where we decide to put things. Some of these are also part of corruption. There are many estates in Nairobi ambazo kulikuwa na regulation you cannot go above 5 floors. Sasa hii ukienda huko unakuta nyumba 30 floors, 35 floors. Kuna areas zenye ilikuwa reserved you cannot construct. These are riparian roads, riparian areas za mto. You go right now on Nairobi River, watu wamejenga up to where the river is. And I think those are failures of governance, also failures of us as residents. We don't see the benefits of doing this. But the hopeful thing is you don't joke around with nature. Nature does claim its space. Like Naivasha, as the person said, tulikuwa tumejenga mpaka kwa lake ndani. When the lake started reclaiming its land, there was no warning. Ulikuwa naamka asubuhi, you cannot walk, unatafuta a boat to get out. This is happening also in Lake Nakuru, Lake Baringo. So when nature decides to claim its space, it's going to claim it back. So we either find a way to work with nature, or we push nature and then nature pushes us back. But I think it's a reflection of poor governance. In fact, there are two things ukienda kwa any city that tells you how the governance is. Kitu ya kwanza ni hewa.
Yes.
Air pollution. I think the former mayor wa London, his focus alikuwa anasema, if I improve your quality in London, that means London is doing well. Because that means utakuwa na gari nzuri, takataka itakuwa managed vizuri, industry zitakuwa na emitting facilities na vitu kama hizo. So if you come to Nairobi and measure the air, you can know how well we are doing in governance. The next big thing is actually urban rivers. If you come to Nairobi, don't care about going anywhere else, just go to Nairobi River. The way it looks, that is how our governance looks.
Doctor, maybe are you trying to tell us maybe in the near future, if we continue with this planting of tree, the 15 billion, and then Lake Naivasha now start to go to its reserves, does it mean that destruction are ahead of us? Maybe we come to that after after short break. Hii ni GBS TV. Asanteni sana kwa watu ambao wanazidi kutuma maswali. Tumeni kwa Ivan Kibe ukurasa wangu wa Facebook pamoja na GBS TV, na waona vizuri sana. Pia naona kuna swali kutoka Kiambu County, tutakuja pale.
the school is an integral center where all these good values will be implemented.
Today on the show, we are talking about parents-teachers relationship.
The parent is the cornerstone of the success of any child.
Psalms 127, verse 3. Behold, children are a heritage from God, right?
Parents, teachers, and the child are the center of focus for a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Make sure you create that friendship bond with your child. Be your best. Be the first best friend your child makes.
What are the things that are leading to suicidal cases?
It's good we talk about these issues on our televisions like what we're doing here now, in our radio stations, in our churches, in our schools, so that we enlighten the society. What can cause and how do we avoid it and how do we take care of the mental health of our young people.
How do they communicate from where your children are schooling?
Okay, thank you so much. For me, I always check the diary every single day. Because number one, I understand the homework that they are given or the assignments. Every time that they're given the assignments, it is noted down on the diary, and I have to sign the diary.
Parenting in the 21st century, the dispensation in which you and I are in, and the bigger community, has drastically changed.
It all began with the realization that the transport industry plays a very crucial role. When you look at the border riders, when you look at the matatu drivers, the bus drivers, the truckers, they play a big or vital part in the development of our economies across the region, but they're not appreciated. And the theme for Africa Mashariki Transport Awards is celebrating excellence in the transport industry. 2019, I was there in my living room and I was just watching news, and a news item came on the screen, and close to 3,000 people had lost their lives due to road carnages. And for me, when I looked at these numbers, they're not just mere statistics. These were not just numbers. These were people. These were mothers. These were fathers. These were daughters. These were sons. These were people who had a promising future, but sadly, their lives were cut short because of road carnages. And I sat in my living room and I was asking myself, what needs to be done? Or what can be done? I want to tell you, change starts with small steps. Start where you are with what you have. Because the greatest asset that God has given you is your mind. When the master was going on a long journey, he gave his 3 servants at each talent. And scripture says, each one of them was given according to their ability. So God has given you an ability to create and to do something great. You can create a transformative change in your community, in your society. God will send other people your way who will help you make it into a reality.
Everywhere, GBS.
Okay, karibu tena, na naona muda wangu umekimbia sana. Sasa naanza kusoma jumbe zenu mbio mbio. Na naomba tuzungumzie swala la, asante sana my good friend Samuel Kigambo they from Ngarariga. Ananiambia ni kusalimia sana.
Asante sana.
So anazungumzia kuhusu afforestation, anasema Kiambu Governor Kimani Wamatangi is doing well and leading county on matters to do with the environment, cleaning the environment, planting trees. What do we expect in Kiambu County in the next 10 years? Tutakuwa na hewa safi?
In terms of environment, I think if I was to project 10 years from now for Kiambu, I think the population is growing very fast. Nairobi is growing towards Kiambu. So in terms of environment, I think Kiambu in the next 10 years will not be better off than where it is. So if I was an advisor to the governor, vile vitu ningesema kwanza we focus on would actually better planning. There is a lot of cities that are emerging in Kiambu. Some cities which are not fully planned. If you go to a town like Ruaka, for example, Ruaka is in Kiambu, is it?
Yes.
Even Kiambu town itself. If you go 10 years back, I remember 10, 15 years back, if you went to Ruaka, it was a very small village town. Now it's a whole major city with its own economy. But if you look at the way it is planned, it is not planned to handle that kind of population. It is a city now holding probably 70,000 to 100,000 people. It does not have a functional sewer system, which means watu wanatumia the septic tanks. Zikija is a very expensive for landlords. I'm just trying to project in the next 10 years, Kiambu might have towns like Roka, probably 5 or 6, which are not planned. If you go to a town like Ruaka, there is no public space where kids can go play. So watoto wanacheza tu kwa flat, and that has a mental health challenges. So I think now what we can do to make Kiambu great is actually start planning those emerging cities, making sure that they do have good water supply, they have amenities for children to play, they have increased green spaces. But planting trees is okay. When people talk about environment, they like planting trees because they are simple and can be seen. But again, when you plant a tree, do you take care of it? If all the afforestation exercises tumefanya Kenya, we followed up with taking care of those trees, trust me, this would be 70% forested country. We just go plant trees and then we walk away. Yeah.
Somebody, Susan Wanjiko, anasema we can't talk about quality air and fail to talk about garbage disposal and garbage collection. Counties have showed other responsibilities. Your comment on garbage collection?
I think solid waste management in Kenya, in most cities, if you happen to be in Mombasa 20 years back, it was an extremely beautiful city. You go to Mombasa now, you don't want to spend more than 2 hours. It's really looking terrible. How we manage solid waste in urban centers is, for lack of a better word, is a disaster. And this is leading to increased flooding during the rainy season, it's increased diseases, but also in the eyes, it's not so appealing. But I think it's mostly a governance failure. We focus more on things that will give us mileage in the political space, but things that makes life better. We don't really focus on it. For Nairobi, for example, waste management is really is not a neglected space. There is a lot of talk, but the investment in that space is almost non-existent. We still put our waste in Dandora, Imeja, but again, where do we take it? Nairobi itself has no land to put additional dump sites. So unless we start thinking about innovative solutions, waste to energy facilities, there are some countries that are doing that successfully. We need to invest and think strategically really how to move this space forward.
Kama tulivyosema kwamba ni jukumu la serikali kuhakikisha kwamba kuna garbage collection inaendeshwa vizuri sana. Kuna sura mbali nasema kwamba inasema counties set billions for task but we still have garbage all over. Bilioni zipo zinatengwa za kusafisha mazingira.
Yeah.
But still takataka ziko kila mahali.
I don't think, but personally, this is a very personal opinion, I don't think we have really thought, or any county in Kenya in that case, have really thought about the issue of solid waste management. And everybody, ukiongea na most political players, wanasemanga how do we bring young people into the waste and look at businesses that can emerge there. Which personally I think that is, if I was advisor, I would say that is a total waste, can't work, won't work. To manage waste management properly, you need strong investment in waste collection. The Kenyans are willing actually to pay for their waste to be collected. A lot of people in our cities do have agreements with private waste collectors. People are willing to pay for their waste to be collected and disposed correctly. But if that is a role that again is given to government na counties, juu hizo failures za management, we don't tend to really go anywhere. Yeah.
Okay, kuna swali hapa hivi kutoka kwa Simon Washuka. Ilikuwa pia swali. Samahani, I think kama nilikuwa nimelisoma alikuwa anauliza kwamba as an environmental conservative, what would you recommend on these issues of garbage collection and disposal?
It does, hiyo mambo ya garbage inataka a lot of investment, especially in collection. Ni lazima tuanze kufikiria how do we build a sanitary landfill. Counties zenye zina surround Nairobi, the Nairobi metropolitan, Machakos, Kiambu, Kajiado, and Nairobi itself. If they were to come together and decide to manage their waste collectively and develop 2 or 3 sanitary landfills, they can actually be able to address the waste challenge. And people are willing to pay for it. The waste also, you can look at it as a resource. Kuna vitu ambazo tunaweza recycle pale kwa waste, we make more money. So it is a challenge that inahitaji watu wengi waketi kwa meza. Lakini saa hii waste management, iko kazi nilikuwa nafanya juzi. We were looking at emission from waste management. Tunatengeza emission inventories for Nairobi. And you can't believe the complexity ya stakeholders wenye wako hapo. Kulikuwa na, there are some innovations, sana watu wanaleta ideas from the West to Africa. Wanasema muimplement hapa. Walikuwa nasema segregation ya waste at source. It cannot work in Kenya until we have recycling facilities. So waste ilikuwa inakuwa segregated vizuri Westlands. Watu wa waste collection wakisha kuja, wakiziokota, wanazipeleka zote Dandora. So venye ulikuwa umeseparate shauri yako wanazimix. So it is a sector that requires a lot of sober minds and to really think about the solutions.
Kuna swali nzuri hapa hivi ambalo linaulizwa na my good friend ambaye anatazama akiwa sehemu za Kariobangi, anaitwa Kirima wa Dhugunu, anasema kwamba we now come to quality air in urban. Anasema where portions of land only accommodate flats, highly populated village. How do you go about this?
Ndio maana nimesema the biggest issue that Kiambu can do now to make it a great county in 10 years is actually planning. Nairobi is actually is a very accidental city. If you think how Nairobi developed, when the railway was being built, wakati ilifika na Nairobi, they encountered the escarpments and the Gong Hills, and they had to look for a station where they can mobilize a lot of building materials kabla wa decide venye atateremka Naivasha. And because of that, they had to put a station in Nairobi. In fact, in 1926, Churchill came to Kenya and to Uganda, to most of the British colonies in East Africa. For Uganda, he found it very beautiful, and actually he called it the Pearl of Africa. And that was Uganda. When he came to Nairobi, he said, this is the worst possible place to put a city. But the mistake has already been done. So Nairobi is swampy. It's the landscape is a problem, and that's why you say also the colonies did not plan all the valleys. Walikuwa nasema valleys ni za wacha zikae unplanned because those are nature reserves. If you look at all the slums in Nairobi, they have the word Mukuru. Mukuru kwa Jenga, Mukuru kwa Buden, Mathare Valley. It's because they were not planned by the colonial government. So when Africans were coming to provide labor now to the industries and all that, they did not have enough money to go to the planned estates, the parklands, the westland, the Kilimani. So most of them ended up coming to the valleys, which were not planned, and building temporary shelters. Ndio maana all the slums zilienda kwa. And nobody has taken the initiative now to say, okay, now we need to bring these slums to formal management and formal planning. Now I think there is a possibility to do that. But yeah, political will bado haiko.
Dr. There's a Department of Planning in our counties. Do they consider by default quality of air while authorizing a house to be built? For instance, we talk about maybe Kiambu County was known for agriculture, that is coffee and tea. Fortunately, unfortunately or unfortunately, the previous government in Kiambu County from the time of Kabogo Waitito had allowed flats to be built on those areas meant for agriculture. What do you expect going forward?
Yeah, that's a sorry, tamu.
And a very technical.
Yeah. Na nitaijibu in one way. I think failure yetu, na tusiangalie just one county. This is a countrywide problem. Hatuna institutions ambazo ni strong. In fact, during Moi era, we had stronger institutions than we do have now. There were institutions those days could actually tell Moi, no, you're not going to do 1, 2, 3. Right now, most institutions, because of the political appointments that vitu kama hizo, most institutions sings the song of the leader, whether it's the president or the governor. They don't tend to challenge that. And if they do, wanakuwa overridden by other institutions. There is a very interesting case right now in the industrial area in Nairobi.
Yes.
There's some low-cost housing that are being built at the center of industrial parks, industrial facilities. So you can tell anybody who's going to live in those houses, watakuwa na face a lot of those emissions from the industries. I know there were strong recommendations from various government and non-governmental institutions, lakini ati msiweke nyumba za kuishi hapa because the hewa ni chafu, kuna is industry, kwa hivyo mazingira si masafi sana, so hakuna mtu anastahili kuishi hapa. Mtu anastahili kuja anafanya kazi anaenda nyumbani. But I don't know whether it was ignored, but the fact that they're being built, those advices are being ignored. So the lack of strong institutions, I think, makes planning of our cities more difficult. The question about the planning department in the county, I have met some of those guys, and in government, we have some of the best experts, really well informed. They understand what needs to be done. Lakini kama hakuna political will, they can just go so far.
So the problem is political will.
I think political will and weak institutions.
So somebody was asking, as an organization, what is your advice can you give maybe to the marginalized ambao we may say that they are marginalized, but at least they might be in a good position maybe to start learning from the developed counties like Nairobi, Kiambu?
Well, like counties that are emerging. I would say when you're planning your cities, usite tu in the table, usite tu the planning department. Ita watu wenye ana manage waste, ita architects, call also the environmentalists, ita watu wa communities, so that you can have a discussion on the city you want to do to have. And then once you have that plan, wananchi wenyewe, they should hold government accountable to the implementation of those plans. Like one of the things that really disappoints me most in this city, the lack of green spaces. Hakuna mahali kuna green spaces in the new upcoming estates. I think kitambo places like Buruburu, they used to have 2 houses and then kiwanja. Now all those things are gone. Now where are our children supposed to play? And unless citizens hold governance accountable, we are not likely to see any improvement.
Maybe now as an organization, and maybe for the years that you have been, some of the challenges that you can say that you have experienced in terms of trying to get to assistance on these issues of quality air?
I think there are several challenges, and now I'll combine also quality air and climate change. For sometimes in Kenya, I did a lot of work in climate finance. There is a lot of money globally to support developing countries. We call that sector climate finance. It's a sector ambayo if tukijipanga vizuri, kuna pesa hapo tunaweza tumia to do some of these things. Even those planning, we can say we want to plan a climate resilient city. Town ambayo kukinyesha ita flood, kukiwa na kiangazi full bado ita flow. So we can actually access some of those financing, but also how we are structured in government, the kind of institutions, strengths we have, it becomes very, very difficult. Ilifika mwaka wa 2018, I personally stopped doing climate finance in Kenya. I went and did it in other countries. I did it in Zambia, Malawi, Togo, Niger. So I was mobilizing money for those countries because they were listening to what I was telling them. This is how we need to do this. And if we agreed, then it was easier to write something and get them some money. In Kenya, we had a huge pipeline that is still stuck because of some unknown reasons. So kuna vitu kama hizo. In terms of air pollution moving forward, I think we need to think about planning. President aliongea juzi mambo ya electric motorcycles. We actually already do have a project that is aiming at improving access to electric motorcycles. Venye tumeplan ikuwa sahi electric motorbike ukienda kununua is around 180,000. Na hii ingine conventional is around 110,000. So hiyo difference ya price ni ngumu sana mtu wa boda kusema I want to now invest 180. Ataona wacha mtundikana hizo money. So we are looking at ways how can we give incentives to close that price gap na to increase the manufacturing production in Kenya. It has not started. It might start in 2025, and I think it's one of those big promising things. So investing in technologies ambazo hazichafui hewa, I think will be very, very important moving forward.
Okay. We have requested about the challenge that you are facing as an organization, but as a Minister of Environment, maybe I know you have come into contact with some of our officials from the ministry. What are some of the challenges maybe that they can highlight that is been challenged when you come to quality air?
First of all, the Minister of Environment does not have a dedicated desk for air quality. Unasikia hizo zingine nilikwambia food, water, ziko na full ministries. Ukienda kwa ministry, in a full secretariat, even a minister and a couple of PSs. Ukikuja mambo ya hewa, it's NEMA ndio wako na wameweka sahihi regulations ya air pollution. But if you look at it, wana focus sana kwa industries. So not really the entire air pollution. At the Ministry of Environment, I have interacted with some people there. We have some of the very good, really excellent professionals there. I hope they can get the space to implement some of the things. But hakuna desk, air pollution. So in case we want to do anything air pollution, we have to work with the counties. I'm very happy Nairobi County does have the air quality, climate change and air quality unit. And it's a very good unit. Sometimes I met watu wa county. Nikamwambia sisi wananchi, when we talk about the counties, watu wenye tunaona kwa county ni the county police. The guys who harass traders. Kanjo. But when I met them and I talked to them, I have always asked myself, why does Nairobi function with this kind of characters? Because you can allow below that there is really some guys who are really trying to get things done. And for example, that unit is doing a lot of good work.
Okay, and ningetaka sasa tuweze kuangalia some of the effort and strength that you can see as a conservative you can boost maybe toward what you have achieved in terms of quality air.
In terms of quality air in Kenya, Kenya sana tumefanya ni more research to understand what is the level of air pollution. Ndio maana identify vehicles as zina contribute almost 30-40% of air pollution in the city, industries, waste burning, all those things. So hapo tumefanya hiyo research vizuri, na hata ukiongea na county wanakwambia hatutaki research sasa, tunataka kutafuta solutions. So now we are focusing on solution. In fact, when tukifanya hii project ya clean air catalyst, kuna vitu ambazo hata mimi I was very surprised. Hospitals in Nairobi County do not have a way of incinerating their waste. I think kuna requirement hospital waste yote lazima iende kwa incinerator. In Nairobi, I think we have 1 or 2 incinerators. So every day we are producing around 150 tons of hospital waste in the city. Incinerators zenye ziko, they can handle around 6 tons. Inamaanisha 140 tons of medical waste is being left unmanaged. Na ndio maana ukienda to dispensaries ama hospitali zingine unakutanga wanachoma takataka hapo nyuma. Because the hospitals are willing to pay for somebody to manage the waste, but those facilities are not,
They're not available.
Yeah. Na zenye ziko, they are handling very little. So kuna true opportunities. Na hapa kama kuna one of your viewers wako interested in investment, these are great investment opportunities.
Okay, no. Tuangalie kuna baadhi ya vijana daktari ambao wako kule mashinani kabisa, ambao wanajipatia riziki kupitia garbage collection. Kutana na wao. How do, maybe in your understanding, how do the world perceive them?
Kuna vijana wengi mashinani hata hapa Nairobi ambao wanapata ajira from waste collection. I think they are not appreciated as much as they should, because wanasaidia sana kutoa some of the shame. If those people are not there and they are not collecting the waste, tungekuwa in a much worse situation than we are. So first of all, ningependa kuambia kudos, congratulations for the good work. How the world views them, and a very interesting comment. There was an old man one day who told me, nobody cares about you. Never ever think there is somebody seated somewhere who is thinking about you and what you're going to eat. You have to think about yourself and also maybe the wider society. So I have seen a lot of initiatives coming out at promoting vijana to grow businesses. But for the vijanas who are in that business, they should think about the waste as a resource. And there are a couple of institutions that can really help them think this deeper. And how can they institute some of the recycling? There's a day I was looking for businesses from vijanas to incubate and turn into viable businesses. And Mombasa had some of the greatest innovations in the waste sector. Kuta mtu anaokota tu vitu na to combine na tengeneza katoy na tengeneza something, and then those are the kind of businesses. I have to say the vijanas of this country, in my view, have been neglected for a long time. I think 4 years ago I was also a kijana. So. Yeah.
The reason why nilikuwa nimeuliza hilo swali because sometimes kutana na wao wakiwa na mkokoteni. They are doing a very good job, a very commendable job. And our counties do forget that it is their responsibility to make an environment to be clean. Sometimes the vehicles that they are using to transport those waste products from where they are collecting to their site.
Yeah, I think we have looked at waste and the waste sector as a waste. I don't know if that makes sense. So at the trucks za kubeba uchafu, we are looking at the trucks that we can actually regard as waste to manage the waste. But if you looked at the waste as a resource, and this is where things get a little complicated. Where does government come in? Where does communities come in? In my own experience in this world, things only change when community decide it's time for things to change. It's very, very rare vitu ku change because of an external force. Most of communities decide, okay, we are done with this. We are going to take matters in our hands and we are going to start cleaning our neighborhoods. We are going to start managing our garbage better. Tutaambiana kama nyumba 10 tukuwe na single collection point na gari inakuja inatoa. So unless we reach that point where communities decide enough is enough, I think they can be able to push. Sometimes sijui kama umeona huko mashinani, there is a day where I come from, we were tired because the road was so dirty. And people started contributing. Okay, mi naleta rolling mbili za mawe, mi naleta kaleka kitu ka kubonda, mi naleta tractor. And we are all having that discussion on our WhatsApp. And for some reason, our MCA saw that. And he said, if this guy do this, I become irrelevant. So before we started moving, the MCA came and then did the road. So sometimes when you start taking action, people who are supposed to take action see they are being challenged. Na wanaingia wanafanya hiyo kazi.
Daktari, globally we are talking about climate change. In Kenya we are talking about an environmental issues, linking them even to into our politics. I am very sure that you were here during the campaign period. Ulikuwa unasikia kiongozi akisema anasema ya kwamba msitulaumu sisi ni sababu mvua haijanyesha, msitulaumu sisi tumeleta jua. But in one or the other, when you're talking about the environmental issues, and you have said that 28,000 people dies every year because of the issues to do with inequality here. Who should hear this morning?
I think everybody needs to to hear this.
But there's a specific one.
I think this is a message that should reach at least the Minister for Environment, because this is clearly her docket. But also is a very interesting sector because number one polluter in Nairobi, in most cities, ni magari. Already we are talking about Minister of Transport. Hiyo kitu ingine waste, so hiyo inaenda kwa Minister of Environment. Hiyo ingine ni watu wanapika na kuni, indoor cooking, hiyo inaenda kwa Minister of Energy. So this is something that requires a lot of sit together. You mentioned something also very interesting. During the campaign, and we are going through a very serious drought period, the food we produce in Kenya, we lose around 30% of it on how we store it. And the debate that captures the country is on how to increase production. But nobody really talks about how do we store our food more safely. There is some people I was consulting in Nakuru County, and there was a lady who was very interesting. She told me if she harvests from her shamba around 20 bags, she knows she needs around 5 bags for the entire year. So that means there are 15 bags. Lakini hana storage. So she ends up releasing the maize in the market when everybody else is releasing in the market, so price inakuwa depressed. So she gets very little from the maize. The 5 bags zenye zinabaki anaweka kwa store na gunia, anaweka ile madawa, na sometimes some of these chemicals are fake. There kuna one of the weavers alikuwa anakaita Osama. They could eat all the maize mpaka the store itself. And she told me one day she took the maize and she wanted to clean it ili ende atupeleke kwa posho meal. And when she was doing that, all the maize was moved aside. There was like a heap of flour because the weavers had eaten that maize. So I think as much as we are focusing on production, we also need to think about storage. Na vitu kama hizo. It's very critical.
Daktari, najua umetembea mataifa tofauti. When you're talking about the climate change and environment issues and also the quality air, najua tuweza kuwa tukilaumu taifa letu la Kenya, whereas maybe there are those countries who are behind us in terms of management of the whole issues of climate change. Maybe where are we globally?
We are actually ranked. There is an index that ranks all the countries in terms of climate preparedness. And I think it ranks 198 countries. I think to go around 164. We are doing badly. We are among watu wa nyuma huko. In terms of planning, in terms of investment. If you look at a country like Kenya, one thing, we are seriously water stressed. We don't have enough rivers, water bodies, so we depend a lot on rainfall. And we don't manage our rainfall well. In fact, there is a joke told, Kenya kukinyesha tunaingia kwa nyumba. Mvua ikiisha tu hivi tunachukua mtungi tunakimbiza hiyo maji. So how we manage our resources, starting from the rain to agriculture, is making us more vulnerable. There was a couple of ideas of building big dams and all those things. We have many other failures that I don't want to mention. But it's a challenge. I think for us to put things together nicely, I think mwananchi wa kawaida has to hold people accountable for what they promise, and they have to deliver it.
Doctor, there's this norm that we only take climate change serious. When you hear about the climate change, we take it serious. When you hear maybe for the 2 years hatujakuwa na mvua, kumekauka. We talk about how we take climate change serious, that term, serious, when tunasikia serikali inatoa it has to spend billions sababu ya kwenda kupeana chakula kwa counties ambazo huwa zinaathirika. Na hata nikiambia mwananchi ataje hizo county nazijua, atakwambia kuna Turkana, kuna Samburu, kuna West Pokot. Ikifika wakati tunazungumzia haya mambo, Wakenya wanachukulia now the climate change is serious, but when we're talking about now quality air, now wanashindwa na hii pia inahusiana is it because maybe there is a certain advocacy that has not been taken maybe to mwananchi, or is it because of negligence?
Kwanza Kibe, wacha kwanza niulize wewe swali.
Niulize.
When you were young, na mlikuwa mnachora. Ulikuwa unachora jua ikiwa kala gani?
Nilikuwa ni ya red.
Ya red, zingine inakuwa yellow. Ningependa sana ukitoka leo, uvae miwani, kisha just look at it. And then you see what color it is. Historically it has been yellow, but I think that color changed in 2 or 3. But that's a debate for another day. So kuna climate change ambayo it's caused because of venye handle mazingira na our emissions. But I think within the entire galaxy, there are other things that are taking place that we are not 100% familiar with. But just that color of the sun changing is enough to kind of wake your eyes and start asking questions. I think ukiangalia Kenya, I think we are not planning well. In 2008 to 2011, we experienced the first 3-year drought in the country. The cost of hiyo drought was estimated at 1 trillion shillings for 3 years. Around 4 million Kenyans were in need of food aid. So that was the first big drought in 3 years. Come again to 2016, 2017, there was another major drought. Now, juzi there was another major drought. If you go historically, every year that ended up with a 4. 1954, 1964, 1974, all those were drought
1984.
years. 1984, yeah. So we got to experience drought every 10 years. But now we are experiencing, now they go in the last 1 year. But now, in the last 20 years, we are experiencing, in the last 20 years, we have experienced around 6 droughts. Now, some of them are lasting 3 years. So, if you project 10 years from now, 20 years, there is a possibility we might face a mega drought that is probably 5 years along. Juzi, there was a very big drought in Madagascar where people had nothing to eat. They were actually eating barks of a tree and clay. You'll go figure to that level. It was actually to be biblical famine. There is a possibility in 10, 20 years we might experience that kind of a drought. And if you think about what are we doing now to address that kind of a challenge, I actually don't think we are doing much. We are talking a lot. It's Kenyans, we like doing that. We are writing a lot to tunaandika ma policy na ma papers, but really the investments on the ground. When was the last time uliona investment in food storage? Probably anyway, I think we are not taking the right steps to address the big challenge that is ahead of us. Lakini najua there are some big disasters coming.
Okay, maybe your expectation as we finish?
My expectation is in the political space, I hope we stimulate discussion ambayo at the political space it inspire action. At the local space, I strongly believe change starts from the bottom. Not bottom up, but it starts from the bottom. People at the bottom and do the change that they want to. And I hope he message, the more we send it to wananchi, the more wananchi come together and they can actually come up with their own local solutions that address their own challenges.
Okay. Nataka niseme asante daktari kwa kutupambia asubuhi ya leo. Niseme tuna mengi tutajifunza kutoka kwako na tumaini kukifikia tena utapatikana.
Nashukuru.
Okay, asante sana. Maybe your last word kwa anayetutazama.
Anayetutazama ningesema shukrani sana kwa kutusikiza kwa huo muda. And I hope some of the challenges tumeongea leo, if you have some ideas on how we can address them, I'll be more than happy if you reach out to Kibe for me to come and also share some ideas and even bring some experts to discuss this. It's something that I'm very passionate about.
Okay, thank you. Mimi nataka niseme asante sana kwa mtazamaji wetu ambao umekuwa nami kuanzia midaa ya saa 1:30 hadi sasa ni saa 4. Kuonana tena hewani ni majaliwa yake Mwenyezi Mungu. Bye bye.